So most people, they create AI models backwards. They start with prompts and not principles. But what if the key to creating better, commercially viable AI models that are emotionally resonant with the audience you have in mind is not necessarily just to do with better prompting, but better direction? Let me show you what that means. But before we get into that, what is missing here? Because to me personally, the specific markers of what's missing is quite obvious. So either it's in the face. We see here that, this person's face doesn't look the greatest. It kind of looks like another person again. Or you get a good shot initially, right? Like, that's a very good lifestyle shot. It would be probably perfect for Instagram. If it weren't for her looking so plastic, if it weren't for her fingers being completely messed up, like, what is that? Like, is it different kind of hand? Like, what's going on? I don't understand. Help me. Explain it to me, guys. I don't know. And then we've got, of course, like two arms there in one. So that's unfortunately a tragedy there. I mean, we're not trying to prompt someone to have two arms. We're trying to prompt someone to have two arms, but two separate arms rather than two arms in one arm, if you know what I mean. So these are the issues that we can get in terms of inconsistencies. Now, going back to that answer, it's probably obvious by now what is the difference, right, between these two images, between A and B, and that is consistency, guys, right? Like, she's got brown eyes. She's got hazel green to brown eyes, much more higher fidelity in the skin, looks way more realistic, okay? So we know that AI tools, of course, can render a face, but it doesn't just come down to a face that's coherent. It comes down to how that character is perceived across multiple different scenes and clothing and environments and lighting conditions, and that's where morphology and uniformity come in. So that's an example of Anastasija just looking pretty, but there is a lot that went into that image. Everything just holds up symmetrically. Everything's great. Most people stop at pretty, but casting directors, and I'll say that intentionally, casting directors, they don't just cast for pretty, they cast for presence. Remember this, guys, when you are creating an AI model, when you are creating an AI influencer, you're casting with intent, crafting with intent. You're sculpting with intent. And what that means is not only do you have to think about how that character is going to look, but that's just the surface. And there's loads of tutorials out there that teach you how to just create a character and how to make her consistent across the scenes. But have you ever thought how to specifically craft the character of your dreams, but then also align it to a commercial perspective? That's what we're going to get into with morphology and how it relates to AI prompting. Okay, so we've got two faces here, and these faces fit specific commercial purposes. I'm just going to break down the most prominent features that I see, and then we're going to relate it to the typical commercial use cases for each character. Okay, so we can see on the left her eyebrow ridge, right? The eyebrow bone, like underneath the eyebrows, you know what I mean, right? It's a bit too prominent. So if we have lighting that is, say, top down, now this is called butterfly lighting setup. So it's when you have one particular main light source and it's shining down on the subject like this, right? So it's like as if I'm looking up and it's like shining down on me. What that would cause is shadows. Now, shadows, if done right, can work really well on a specific face. Okay, so we can see that the nose is broad and rounded at the tip, okay, but it doesn't highlight the face in as good detail as it would be highlighted for if she had a more sculpted or narrow tipped nose, like with the Sasha Loss character here, or my Elena character. Then we can see the brow ridge, so her brow ridge is more prominent, which casts shadows over her eyes. Let's say she had more indented or deep set eyes, we would get much more sculptural definition over her eyes. So there would be more presence in her eyes. There would be more of an intense gaze. When we think of intense gaze, we're usually thinking of eyes that are a bit more naturally closed, as well as upturned, and then usually deep set. That's more of an intense gaze. So that can make her expression feel a little less open or emotive, especially in soft editorial shots where eye contact is key. Then the jawline is more rounded than angled, more rounded than oval, especially when you compare it to like Sasha Loss, for instance. It's a bit more oval. With her, it's a bit more rounded / square. So it's not the best, okay, when it comes to giving off a high-end editorial feel. And for catching the light, which is what I refer to with that Elena example, where like shadow is cast beneath her jawline on her neck. So it really brings it out and it helps define the face much more better than it would otherwise be defined as, because it lacks the sharp defined features in Sasha Loss's face, as we can see, right, with a clean bone structure. And if we compare it to our character Elena, that's more high-end editorial, kind of unreachable, unattainable, but just effortlessly elegant, that look. If we contrast that to what I had up here with Anastasija, much more open, much more LA beach girl friendly, approachable, Lululemon, like yoga. That's the vibe you get immediately. And there's a distinct reason why that is. It's because of the morphology of her face, how certain features are. More heart-shaped her face. She's got dimples, really open, inviting feel. She's got medium full lips, right? But they're like well proportioned with the rest of her face. She's got open, inviting eyes. This is called neoteny, okay? So when eyes are more naturally open and wide, that's more neotenous rather than closed. Could be construed as being more elegant and better suited to high editorial shoots, especially if they're more closed, as I alluded to, but her eyes are more open and expressive and inviting and accommodating. So you get that immediately without any words having to be spoken, guys. That's just what comes across. And then she's got a very fit body. So it's a very like gym girl kind of aesthetic, gym girl influencer. And now we compare that to the right. It looks very unique, this aesthetic. The cheeks feel a bit gaunt. They don't feel like well proportioned, should we say. And her lips are a bit too full. And what that does is involuntarily, it takes away from the other stronger features of her face. So we know that for the most part, her nose is quite well proportioned, okay? If we compare it to the character on the left. So if she had her lips well proportioned as well, like medium full rather than fully full, it would be much more better. It would be much more even. And I would say her face is a bit more rounded. Like it would help if it was a bit more oval, because that would bring out, you know, certain shadows as well, especially if we're using the butterfly lighting and accentuate her features well. So the commercial verdict here is she does suit very interesting, shall we say, fashion brands like Rick Owens. And that's an example there from literally a Rick Owens sales page of a model. And again, very distinctive look, okay? Very unique look. It's not a traditional look that you typically see. It's like deliberately different, you know? So that's the kind of aesthetic that the person on the right would exhibit. Remember this, that morphology essentially is the structural makeup. It's the structural foundation of your AI model. Either they have it for the specific purpose that you have in mind, or they don't, okay? So quite frankly, on the left, that's Anya. But we can tell she's got like a little bit of upturned eyes, okay? Because they got that angle there. She's got almond-shaped eyes. She's got good, even symmetry between her eyebrows. They're arched as well. She's got that nice crowned forehead, button nose, but the right amount of width that flares out as well. So really well, she's like sculpted intact perfectly for a really high-end editorial shoot. And then conversely, when we compare that to Anastasija, she's got a very warm, inviting smile, good dimples. Dimples basically gives off approachability, gives off friendliness without any words having to be present. And then when we match that to her eyes and how they're naturally open and expressive and almond-shaped, you just get this like warm, inviting feel. And her eyebrows are really balanced as well. Arched, but not overly done, okay? And especially with her hairstyle as well, it's not anything over the top. And what she's wearing, just a casual tank top, it's a really nice, open, inviting feel. Okay, so how do you actually prompt for this? What do you include within your prompts? So there's some keywords, and I showed this in another video where I was prompting for Anya, our character on the left here, and you would include things like face shape being oval or sculpted, okay, the nose being narrow or having a refined tip, eyes being almond shaped, right, or rounded, upturned, and then the skin texture as well, you can specify with porcelain or having a luminous finish. And then with Anastasija, you can say that, you know, the face shape is a heart shape, or you can have a hybrid, and I'll get into what that looks like now in midjourney. I'll show you some examples. Oval shaped face, plump lips, narrow nose, arched eyebrows, okay? The only thing it hasn't adhered to is the light grey eyes, but everything else is done wonderfully. And that literally is an example of Rembrandt lighting, where on the less illuminated side of the face, you get a triangle there that appears. That's literal textbook Rembrandt lighting. And how, when you include some of these keywords in your prompt, you can start to really define the morphology of your character, how they are appearing. Keep that in mind, guys. But structure is just the start, okay? So once you've defined how you want your character to look like, now it's really important to tackle something called uniformity, right? Them looking the same across various different scenes, various different outfits, different poses, and what to look for in that as well. So you won't want to miss that. Feel free to click the card on the right to see exactly that in action.